everybody. It's great to have you here at our first cooking class for kids. This week, we're going to have Daniel Kligmann, our Chop Junior champion, share a great recipe that you could bless your mom with on Sunday for Mother's Day. And this is sponsored by the Adventure Church. We are all about loving God and loving people. And today, loving kids and loving moms. So let's bring into the scene Daniel Kligmann, our Chop champion. Welcome in.
Hi, everyone. How are you guys doing? I competed on Chopped about 5 years ago when I was 14 years old. Now I'm 19. This is the chef's coat, one of the prizes for winning. It was so much fun. I had a blast doing that. So just to let you guys know, we have, we're going to be doing, so sorry, I'm getting a little bit confused. I have a pretty large family, right? So the way I learned how to cook was actually cooking for that large family. I have 11 siblings, and my mom actually taught me how to cook. It was so much fun. It was my favorite chore in the house. She would assign us a day to cook every week so that we could learn ourselves how to cook. And because she and my dad were both very busy. So just a shout out to the if you guys may have come for it because of you saw a billboard on I-15. It was provided by Yesco, and thank you so much for that. So just letting you guys know before we get started, just send any questions you have on my experience on Chopped, or questions on the recipe, any tips you might need. I'm willing to answer as many as I can that time will allow me to do. So moms are so important, right? I love my mom so much. She's really an inspiration to me. She helped with, she really did teach me how to cook, and she has so much wisdom, and she really, and honestly, if I had listened to some of that wisdom in advance, I wouldn't have actually made some of the mistakes I made. Yeah, so Chopped was so much fun. I'm going to just talk a little bit about that before we get into the fun stuff. Chopped was a blast. There's actually a funny story. One time when I was actually shaking her hand at the end of the episode when I had won, I actually poked Martha Stewart in the eye because she had leaned forward and I had shook her hand, and I raised it up too fast and I poked her in the eye, and they actually retook, and it was so much fun. That was just so weird. So that was just a funny story I had. So after I was done competing on Chopped, it was after I was done competing on Chopped, it was a blast. I actually had done a lot of things with my life afterwards, from owning a catering company to actually going into flight school. I'm learning to become a pilot now, which is super weird. So let's go ahead and get into this, right? So we're going to start off with cooking our bacon, because bacon takes the longest thing to cook out of all of these things that we're doing. Out of all the recipes, bacon is going to take the longest. So here's my bacon. I had already laid it out, but we are going to put it on a baking sheet, which is the cheating way of doing it, but I feel like it is the perfect way to cook bacon. So because you can check it and make sure it's exactly the way you want. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the oven right now. The oven is at I preheated the oven to 400 degrees because I feel like that's the perfect baking bacon temperature. And then we're going to go into making the custard for the French toast. So I'm going to grab my medium-sized mixing bowl. I'm going to grab 3 eggs. All right, my vanilla, my cream, and salt, and my brown sugar. All right, so these are the ingredients for the custard. So French toast is actually called French toast because because you dip it in a custard, because a custard is eggs, milk, and cream, eggs and milk and sugar. Those are the basic ingredients of a custard, which is a French dessert. And so that's why it's called French toast, because you might have been wondering that, because it's always made in America. It was invented in America, but we dip it in, we do dip it in a custard, which is why it is French toast. So now we're going to start off with, the eggs. And the tip for cracking eggs is you're going to want to tap on the counter, not on the bowl, because if you tap it in the bowl, the edge of the bowl actually pushes shells into the egg white and yolk. And you don't want that because no one wants crunchy eggs, right? Okay. All right, and now we have a quarter. We're going to put it in a quarter cup of cream. So you're going to want to measure it to a quarter cup. Just pour it straight in there. Okay, and then there's 1 teaspoon of vanilla. My vanilla right here. All right. All right, now I'm going to put in a half a teaspoon of salt. Now you might be thinking, weird, what, salt in a sweet dish? What is he thinking? Salt is actually in almost almost everything you'll ever eat. Salt is one of the most, except for the fruits and vegetables, salt is incredibly important to dishes. It's a flavor enhancer. So although I'm making a sweet dish, I will always add salt. Okay, so the recipe calls for a quarter cup of brown sugar. We're actually only going to add 1/8 of a cup to the actual mix, the custard mix, because we're going to save a quarter cup of it for later. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to find my whisk real quick. Here it is. Okay, I'm going to take this. And when you have the brown sugar in the eggs, sugar and eggs don't actually mix super well sometimes. It actually will solidify and make a weird, make it all clumpy and such. So you're just going to want to mix it, and you're only going to want to mix it enough to dissolve the brown sugar. You don't want to mix it too much because you don't want it to be too fluffy. You want the egg to actually absorb into the bread. So that is what we're doing. And when you mix the egg, you'll actually end up having this weird fluffy thing, and it won't be in the center and on the outside of the bread. It'll just have this weird. Man, that bacon smells good. It's already sizzling in the eggs. So while I'm doing this, do you guys want to ask some questions? Let me know what you have.
We have one question that came in.
Oh yeah?
They want to know, how does salt make things sweeter?
Oh, how the salt makes things sweeter. So salt is a unique thing. It's actually really important in everything, right? You actually need it to survive. But salt actually, it doesn't always taste like salty like you would imagine. It actually enhances each individual flavor, right? So it enhances all flavors. So as soon as the salt hits your palate, you get that salty flavor, but then then the sweet hits your palate, and then it actually enhances the sweetness because it's an opposite flavor. It's a contrast. And also it enhances the sweetness itself because that's what it does. All right, and any more questions, just let me know. Throw it at me.
There's one question. What's your favorite food to make?
My favorite food to make? Oh man, I love making Italian food and soups. I love to make soups and Italian food. Those are probably my favorite things to cook. It's simple and a lot of fun. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and set this custard mix over here by my preheated pan. And right now we're gonna go over the scrambled eggs. So we're going to set this over here, my small mixing bowl. And we're gonna add 4 eggs to the bowl, and we're gonna mix it. And the amount of time you whisk the eggs only depends on how fluffy you like your eggs. It has to have cheddar cheese and milk for this, as well as salt. So remember, the eggs become very fluffy the more you mix it. So we're going to. So if you like your eggs fluffy and kind of like feels like a cloud in your mouth, then whisk it as much as you like. I personally like it kind of medium. I like it a little fluffy and a little bit more dense. And all 4 eggs. So remember, this recipe is designed for 2 people. If you want to cook for this for your entire family, then go ahead, then multiply the recipe by the number of people in your family. All right, so again, we have 1/8 of a cup of milk, but I'm actually going to, again, use 2 tablespoons of milk instead, because 2 tablespoons is, again, 1/8 of a cup. 1, 2. Okay, you don't want too much because you want the eggs to cook but still have that kind of creamy flavor. I'm going to go ahead and mix that. So again, I like mine a little bit fluffy, but if you like yours dense, then don't mix it too much. Okay, now that it's incorporated, I am going to add my salt. Go ahead and mince these off real fast first. You guys, remember to keep the questions coming. Like if you have questions about my experience on Chopped, or maybe you want to know anything, really, I'm more than willing to answer your questions.
How was it to audition for Chopped Junior?
Auditioning for Chopped Junior, that was kind of a challenge. For most people, it kind of goes by pretty quickly, but for me, it took 1.5 years. Initially, I had applied online, and it's an online application, and then I did an online interview to make sure that I actually knew what I was talking about when it came to cooking. So I'm going to add another half a teaspoon of salt to the eggs. Because remember, flavor enhancer. All right, and then it kind of went blank. They told me I wasn't going on to the episode that I had applied for, which was a team championship competition, and I didn't initially get on, but so I applied for like 6 times to this to the competition, and it never really. And it took them about 1.5 years when they emailed me and they said, "Hey, we've got this new thing called Chopped Junior." I was the very first season, so they wanted to test. So I was like the guinea pig for it, and my episode is season 1, episode 4. So I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of cheddar cheese real quick. And then once I finally got on, it was so much fun. I got to go to Manhattan. I got to go to they rented me a hotel in the center of Manhattan. It was just so much fun, and it was an all expenses paid trip. Besides some things like souvenirs, or if we wanted to go to a fancy restaurant, I actually went to Chris Santos's restaurant. So I'm going to mix that in just gently because you don't want to break up the cheese.
Who were the judges, and what did you think of them?
Jeffrey Zakarian, Chris Santos, and Martha Stewart. There's a lot of things that are said about Martha Stewart, but personally, I loved her. She was nice to the crew members off camera, not just on camera, and she was nice to everyone. Chris Santos, he was a tough judge, but he gave me his honest opinion and everything wrong or right with my food. And then Jeffrey Zakarian, he was interesting. He's kind of a closed book. I didn't get to know him super well. So I'm going to put 1/2 tablespoon of butter into my pan. I'm going to raise the temperature of my pan to about 5 o'clock. So right now we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to put this also over by my custard. And I'm going to start doing the French toast. Also, make sure you check it on your bacon regularly because you don't want that to burn. Oh, it's starting to look great, but I'm going to flip it around so that it cooks evenly around the entire bacon. Around the entire pan of bacon, like that. So I'm going to turn it around because you see one side is cooked more than the other, so we don't want that. We want it to be cooked evenly. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut that. Oh, so remember, knife safety is really important. When you're using a knife, you want your fingers back and curled so that if you do actually end up going after your knuckle, it doesn't cut because it just slides over your knuckle. And you want to then cut just like that, okay? All right, now that I have the right amount of butter, half a tablespoon, I'm going to go ahead and put it in my pan. I'm going to spread it evenly. Okay. I'm only going to cook one piece of French toast so that I can show you how to do it. Again, cook as many as you like because this is for your family and for your mom. If you want to cook for your entire family breakfast so your mom doesn't have to do it, then that would be great too. Also, so I'm just going to have to. So I dip both sides of the bread into the custard. Set that right here on the cold part of the stove, and I'm going to just lay it gently right here. Okay. Now I can't tell you an exact time, an exact amount of an exact time how long it's going to take because each stove is different, and I put my dial on medium. So put your stove temperature on medium, and depending on how hot your stove cooks on medium will determine how long it takes. But I can't tell you how it's supposed to look when you flip it. You're going to want a nice brown edge around it and a nice good cooked center, kind of golden brown. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put this aside because I won't be using that anymore for right now. All right, I'll put this aside right here. Okay, and so while that's cooking, I actually have a little bit of time to answer more questions. So are there any that you guys have?
What would you give advice to someone who wants to be on Chop Junior?
My advice? Oh shoot, I practice. People are very willing to help you practice if you tell them you're going on Chop Junior. So what I did is I actually, to put myself in an unfamiliar kitchen and with unfamiliar ingredients and things like that, my mom actually set up people that are willing to host me in a kind of Chop Junior competition where they buy the ingredients and they have their kitchen and they have their pans and equipment. So I was unfamiliar with it, and that was a great. So practice is the most part of it.
Also, do you have plans to go on an adult cooking show next?
Yes, actually, I am really excited about this, but I'm actually going to put my application in for Chopped Adult, and so that I could, I'm actually applying for a Chopped Adult, and I was actually at one point invited to Guys Grocery Games, but I actually missed the deadline for it, and they decided to go with somebody else. But so they are willing to let me compete again, so I'm actually really excited about doing that. All right, if you go ahead and look over here, we're going to go ahead and take a peek at our French toast. All right, that, in my opinion, is perfect French toast. If you take a peek, it's got that nice brown edge, so ready to flip. Now the second side, we're not going to cook as much as we're cooking the first because we want it to. We were going to cook it again later in the oven. That's where the other portion of brown sugar comes in. All right.
Another question for you. How does the milk make stuff creamy?
How does the milk make stuff creamy? Well, did you know that milk and cream come from the same place? They both come from the cow, right? And once they milk the cow, the fat that raises to the top of the milk is actually the cream. So the majority of the flavor of milk, the creaminess of milk, is actually because of the cream that's inside the milk and the fat. So that's why it makes it creamy. All right, so now we are going to take a peek at our bacon. All right, so the thing about bacon is that it will continue to cook after you take it out of the oven. So we want to take it out of the oven right before it's finished. That way, when it does finish cooking, it's not burnt. But I'm actually going to go ahead and take that off the pan because it looks like that is pretty well done. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a pair of tongs. All right. And look at these plates. Aren't they pretty? These are the ones we're going to use for the presentation at the end of it. All right. Remember, bacon does continue to cook even on the plate, and as it cools down, it'll actually get crunchier. So you want to take the bacon out right before it tastes finished. Oh man, it smells so good. I'm thinking about eating it, which is why I said right before it tastes finished, but right before it looks finished.
So another question, Daniel, is can you use almond milk instead of regular milk?
I wouldn't actually recommend almond milk because I don't think almond milk and eggs would taste very good together. I would actually, if you're looking for a non-dairy solution, I would use coconut milk or coconut cream. That would be the things that would be what I would use. So if you, all right, now we're gonna go ahead and take a peek at our French toast. All right, this is a little bit more than I would have cooked it to cook it a second time, but it will still work for us because it's only slightly too much. Okay, so we're gonna put this in the center of another baking sheet. Turn off our stove, because that's important. We don't want our stove to be continuously burning. And actually, I'm gonna do a little different. I'm gonna put it on low, because we still want the pan hot. We don't want it to be burning the butter, residue butter that's still in there. All right, so now we're going to take, so remember, the 1/8 of a cup brown sugar is for 2 servings, and which would be 4 slices of French toast. So I'm not going to use a whole 1/8 of a cup on a single piece of French toast. I'm going to use about a little bit. You just want to sprinkle the brown sugar over the top of it. And then we're going to pop that in the oven. Do I have any more questions from you guys? Okay, just like that. All right.
What was the weirdest thing that you've eaten in your life?
The weirdest thing I've eaten in my life. All right, there's 2 things. All right, I've eaten raw pig liver, and that was the grossest thing. I thought it was so gross. That was probably the worst tasting thing I've ever eaten in my life. The weirdest thing I've ever eaten is probably bloat in the Philippines. I visited the Philippines when I was about 14. And it was actually I was 13 because I was still applying for CHOP at that point. And so it's a chicken egg, and it's actually a duck egg that they fertilize and incubate until it's fully gestated and ready to hatch, and then they boil it, and then they ferment it, and then you crack that open and you eat it whole, and it's really interesting and different. It tastes similar to chicken soup, which is super weird, but I think the raw liver was actually, I hated that more than I hated the bloat. But that's just me personally. I think other people would find eating an entire baby chick whole would be gross. It was pretty gross. So I'm going to go ahead and place I'm actually going to go ahead and start the scrambled eggs. While I check on my French toast, I'm actually going to turn that on broil because I want the the brown sugar to melt on top of the French toast to kind of give it a nice crunch to it, a nice sweet crunch. And that way you don't need as much syrup and such. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. Now I'm going to use the same pan I used to cook the French toast for the scrambled eggs. I wouldn't do that in, say, a professional kitchen because I'm serving people food that they paid for. But for a home kitchen, for just eating by itself, I don't think it's a big problem. So I'm actually just going to take an old cloth and I'm going to wipe old butter out of the pan. And be careful. I actually don't recommend doing this. I recommend doing this with a parent's help because you don't want to burn yourself. Okay? So now I'm going to cut another 1/2 a tablespoon of butter. Remember, it's knife safety. Keep your fingers away from the blade. The tips of your fingers, at least. I'm going to go ahead and place that on top. I'm going to spread the butter. And if you don't like butter, or you have it, or you feel like it's unhealthy or something like that, then coconut oil works perfect for this. It also works perfect. It also would taste delicious with the French toast. So now I'm going to use a rubber spatula because I think that works great for the eggs. I'm going to add the eggs to the pan. This is my favorite pan. It's one that I got. It's actually kind of a cool story. I one time went to go buy a I went to go buy a bunk bed with my mom, and the guy that I bought the bunk bed from recognized me from Chop, and he went into his cupboard and gave me this really, really nice pan. And I love it so much. Like this is a stainless steel pan, and the eggs aren't even sticking to it. It's so much fun. It has good heat distribution. All right, do I have any more questions?
Who inspires you as a chef?
Oh, my favorite celebrity chef. His name is Jacques Pepin. And also my brother Kevin. He helped me a lot, and my brother Jake. They both helped me a lot with practicing. All right, one thing before I go into that more is the eggs. You want to take them off the pan before they're finished. Just like the bacon, it cooks more off the pan than it does when it's off the heat. So right now, that is how I like my eggs. It's actually a little bit before how I like my eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and put it down so that when it is finished, so while it cooks, it is completely perfect. All right. So now, if you like chives or onions with your eggs, go ahead and put those in. Customize your eggs the way you like it. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more cheese for garnish and for flavor. And if you like your eggs to if you like your eggs with chives or with onions or with garlic, go ahead and put that in there. It really is up to you how to cook, what you put in the eggs. And now that we're done with this pan, I'm going to go ahead and set it aside in the sink. I'm going to put a little bit of water in it so it's easier to clean later.
Can you tell us a little more about what it was like to be on Chop, maybe your competitors?
Okay, my competitors. I actually loved my competitors. I loved hanging out with them. They were a lot of fun hanging out with people who are just as passionate about cooking as I am. I loved Kara. I can't remember her last name, but Kara was one of my favorites. Hannah, she was a blast. She was the blonde. Kara was the tall brunette, and then Jordan was the kid with the colored hair. Man, they were a lot of fun. They were a lot of fun to hang out with. Now I'm going to go ahead and check on my French toast. Oops. So it's actually a little bit crispier than I had intended, but you can tell. So I actually took this out a little bit too late, but the brown sugar's all melted onto it. That's actually what we want. And now we're going to turn off our oven. We don't want it to continue to be on broil. So actually, I got talking and I kind of got distracted and I forgot about my French toast a little bit, and it burned just a touch. But it's okay. It's okay if it's burnt just a little bit. Actually, the burnt flavor I actually kind of like a little bit, which is kind of a weird thing, but it's just kind of like a charred taste. The sugar burnt is not a great flavor, so we're going to, but it's okay because we're putting a whole lot of stuff on it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and take this. And I'm going to take my final plate. I'm going to put it on there. And we're going to set this aside for just a second so we can prep the toppings for it. All right. Now you don't want to touch this right now because it's very hot. So we're going to let it cool on the stove. You don't want to put it on the counter either because it might burn your counter depending on what you have. All right. So now we're doing our toppings, which is going to be strawberries, powdered sugar, banana, and whipped cream. Okay. One cool thing, so one kind of tip I have for you is you want to cut the banana very thin because banana has a strong flavor that that will take over your dish. And you don't want it to be French toast flavored banana. You want it banana flavored French toast, right? So we're going to cut the bananas very thin. All right. So remember, you want to have your knuckles curled and at the tip of your knife. That way you can control your knife and such. And we're going to want to cut it very thin, just like so. Just like that. Okay, that should be enough right now. All right. And then we're going to cut our strawberries again about the same. You want it the same thickness as your banana. So we're going to set this aside right here. All right. And make sure your strawberries are nice and washed. Remember knife safety. That's very, very important. And if you're not allowed to use a sharp knife, then a butter knife works just fine for this. It might mush the strawberries just a little bit, but strawberries can handle that and still be delicious. Man, Chopped was so much fun. They offered that I could bring my own knives. They offered me their knives, which were sharp and really easy to handle. But I actually wanted to bring my own knife because it's better to bring a knife that you know, and like even if it's not as nice as the knives that are offered, it is better to bring a knife that you know because then you can handle it much easier.
Another question we have is, do you have any advice about using an oven?
Oh, any advice about using an oven? All right. Always use hot pads, even if you are just putting a cold pan in the oven, because you might touch the grate and such, and you always want to preheat because you want the food to be cooking at the exact temperature the entire time, not just part of the time. So I'm going to go ahead and wash my measuring spoons, dry them off with my towel. And I'm going to take a tablespoon of confectioner's sugar or powdered sugar. I'm going to put it in my sieve right here. This is kind of a cool trick. Okay, and you're going to want to hold it out your hand and tap it. Have you ever had a white sugar powdered donut? This is how they do it. This is how they make it like that. Okay, and now I'm going to set this aside because we will use more of that powdered sugar later. All right, we're going to now layer on banana. I like putting on the banana first because it's much more sticky. So it'll hold on to the strawberries and strawberries won't slide off. You want to cover that thing so that every bite that your mom eats has a little bit of banana and a little bit of strawberry. All right. And now we're going to layer on our strawberries. Again, you want to cover it because you want every bite to be a little bit of strawberry and a little bit of banana, whipped cream, and all the fun stuff. Personally, my mom loves strawberries, so I would actually add a lot more strawberry than banana, but the majority of people want equal of both. So now you're going to want to shake your whipped cream so that it comes out not all splotchy and spraying everywhere. You're going to want to do it in nice, even lines. Start at the same place every time at the very top. Okay, and then so that is finished with that. Now I'm going to make it look pretty, and we're going to do that with the most perfect looking strawberry in the bunch. So you want to pick out the best looking strawberry. I think it's this nice big one. All right. And now we're going to cut the strawberry down to as far as you can without cutting through. And if you don't feel like you can't do this part, then go ahead and just slice up a little bit more strawberry and put it on. Because it is a little bit more difficult. And actually, when I was on top, I did this technique, but I did it wrong. I cut it on the side instead of on the top, and I put it on top of my ice cream. And the judges looked at it and laughed a little bit. They thought it was kind of funny because they know what I was trying to do, but they also know that I was nervous. Okay, we're gonna cut a little bit of banana too. 3 more slices, and this one's gonna be a little bit more thick, so it shows a little bit better. You're going to add that on top.
Daniel, can you use another fruit besides bananas and strawberries, like mangoes?
Oh, mangoes are delicious on this. I love mangoes. Or pineapple. Yeah, you can use whatever you want. Honestly, you just put whatever you want on this French toast. You can put Nutella if your mom likes Nutella, peanut butter if your mom likes peanut butter. Do whatever you want. on the French toast, as long as it would go well with French toast, feel free. This is just what I like to do. And sometimes I'll even make my own syrup sometimes, but that is for a different cooking class. So now you're going to want to take it and sprinkle just a touch more confectioner's sugar over the top so that it shows on the strawberry. All right, and that is completed. So now I'm going to go ahead and take this and put it on our serving tray. Now, any serving tray works, so I'm going to go ahead and put this right here now. And we're going to make this look pretty. So now I have my bacon, my eggs, my French toast, and now I'm going to take the flowers and set it right, put some flowers right on top of there. If you don't have flowers, it doesn't matter. You don't need to make it look, you don't need to add the flowers because the main event is the food, right? Now, I'm going to taste this and make you guys all jealous, all right? I'm going to try the French toast first because it's one of my favorites. French toast is probably my favorite food. All right. Okay. Look at that. You can see the strawberry banana layers and the powdered sugar. That looks delicious, and you guys are going to be so jealous as I eat this. It is so good. It is delicious. I love it so much. I'm going to put this back. All right. So I'm going to go over questions one more time. Are there anything you guys want to know about going on Chopped? Anything.
People want to know what you did with the $10,000 press.
Oh, yeah. So actually, I saved a little bit of it. And I bought my first car with it, but a lot of it I gave to my brother Kevin in the Philippines, because he is doing a great service. He's feeding the people. He's feeding people that live in the slums and just building shelters and homes for them. And then he is actually working on an orphanage, and he used the money I gave him to feed hundreds of families for a month. And it was incredible. The amount that I did with the amount that I gave him was. He did so much more with it than I could have done in the U.S. It was incredible. And honestly, I could have kept all the money to myself, and I could have just wasted it and squandered it. But honestly, it was a gift the Lord gave me. And at that point, I felt like I needed to give back. And so I did buy my first car with it, and it was a cheap car, $1,700. And the rest of it, and a lot of it, I gave to my brother Kevin, right? All right, are there any more questions before I go ahead and do the final things with this? All right, so now I have my, all right, so you're doing this for your mom, right? This is a gift you're giving to your mom, and it is, man, it is such a beautiful tray, and you've got all of probably her favorite foods here, and it is so. And it is a very generous thing for you to be doing. And just like the Lord has given, just like Jesus gave us the gift of salvation, you're going to give this to your mom. And it's so generous and so nice. And it's such a beautiful platter. All right. And so I think that's concluding what I'm doing, concluding the cooking lesson. And remember to look out for other cooking classes, because there's talk about doing more of these in the future. Thank you guys so much.
Great job, Daniel. That was awesome. You are a great cook. I am very hungry right now. Thank you so much for doing that. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
And, Daniel grew up here at this church. And I just remember when he was just a little guy, couldn't even be counter height. And, this place is about loving God, loving people, loving kids. And if you want to find out any more about how that happens and how you could come into a personal relationship with the creator of the world, the one who created all these wonderful things that we get to taste and eat, we encourage you to go to our website, theadventure.church. And did you want to close in a quick prayer?
Yeah, of course. Let's do it.
Go ahead.
All right, dear Lord, I thank you for this day. Man, I love doing this kind of thing. I love kids, and I love teaching kids, and I love cooking as well. Thank you for letting me show all of my passions in one day with these kids. Lord, I pray that they can bless their moms and their moms enjoy what they do for them. And in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, guys. All
Thanks
right,
for being with us
Happy
today.
Mother's Day.
all right.